So, as many of us bake in sweltering heat across the United States this week and Texas grapples with catastrophic flooding, it is worth noting that climate change will drive future wars while reshaping global security and geopolitics at the same time. Rising temperatures, extreme weather, and resource scarcity are creating conditions for conflict. These forces are not distant threats, though. They are already sparking tensions that could ignite into warfare. Climate change intensifies resource competition, destabilizing regions and nations. By 2030, over half a billion people will face severe water shortages, particularly in places like the Middle East and South Asia. The India Pakistan water dispute, centered on the Indus Waters Treaty of 1960, has escalated due to climate pressure and geopolitical tensions. The treaty allocates the Indus River system's eastern rivers to India and western rivers to Pakistan, supporting 80% of Pakistan's agriculture. However, India controls the headwaters, and their 2025 suspension of the treaty following a Kashmir attack threatens Pakistan's water security by halting data sharing and accelerating dam projects that risk drying up the water that goes to Pakistan. Pakistan has called this an act of war, while climate change worsens glacial melt and erratic monsoons amplify stakes for both countries as they try to survive in this new climatological era. China's growing water scarcity, with 90% of its groundwater undrinkable and severe droughts in the north, has drawn its attention to Russia's Lake Baikal, which holds 23% of the world's fresh water. Proposals for a 1,000-kilometer pipeline to divert Baikal's water to Gansu province and a Chinese-funded water plant in 2019 sparked Russian public outrage, halting the project amid fears of ecological damage and Chinese overreach. Historical tensions rooted in the 1858 Treaty of Aigun, ceding this territory to Russia, fuel Russia's concerns about China's intentions about potentially taking it back, with some locals viewing Baikal as a target of Beijing's resource ambitions, especially now that Russia is in a weakened state due to Ukraine and economically subservient to China. The Nile River dispute, where Egypt relies on the river for nearly all its freshwater, shows how water can become a flashpoint. Food production is also at risk, with global crop yields potentially dropping by a quarter by 2050. In sub-Saharan Africa, where millions depend on rain-fed farming, shrinking harvests are already fueling insurgencies like those in the Sahel region of northern Africa. Arable land in the central band of the globe is vanishing due to desertification, pushing communities into conflict over fertile regions, as seen in Darfur's violence. Climate-driven migration adds pressure, with up to 200 million people expected to be displaced by 2050. Movements from vulnerable areas like Bangladesh to neighboring countries could strain borders and spark clashes. Hell, we see this angst already in the US as we see a push to lock down any form of immigration coming to the United States. A lot of it has to do with refugees that are leaving areas that are impacted by climate change. Megacities are at risk as well, such as Lagos, and they face growing unrest as urban populations compete for scarce resources. On the other side of the globe, the Arctic is emerging as a new battleground. Melting ice opens shipping routes and access to vast oil, gas, and mineral deposits, estimated to hold over a tenth of the world's undiscovered oil. Russia is fortifying its Arctic presence, while China seeks influence through its Polar Silk Road. The United States and Canada are also boosting its naval operations in that area, and disputes over maritime boundaries could escalate into skirmishes. The discussion over Greenland factors into this for the Trump administration. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, though. It mostly is, but it's not all. There are countries that stand to gain. I mean, Canada probably will benefit significantly. Warming boosts its agricultural season with a 20 to 30% arable land increase by 2050 in the prairies, positioning as a food supplier as sub-Saharan Africa faces a 25% crop loss. Arctic ice melts open the Northwest Passage, enhancing trade and access to 13% of the global undiscovered oil per a U.S. Geological Survey, though Canada must counter U.S. and Chinese ambitions in that region as well. Russia benefits from accessible Arctic routes like the Northern Sea Route, cutting Asia-Europe transit by 40%. Its 2023 Arctic strategy leverages 30% of global natural gas reserves while thawing permafrost reveals rare earth metals. Grain output is up 10% since 2015 in Russia, which has bolstered food exports as rivals like India face water shortages. Nordic countries such as Sweden, Finland, and Norway see gains as well. Sweden's crop yields may rise by 15% by 2040. Norway's fisheries shift north, and hydropower, 90% of its electricity, benefits from increased rainfall. So, outside of those few countries that may see a benefit, this intensifying scramble for dwindling water and fertile land in much of the central band of the world is not just a challenge, it's a ticking time bomb for global stability. Nations will either act swiftly to secure resources or forge cooperative agreements, or they will go to war so they don't die. These wars are going to reshape borders and potentially change the very nature of humanity as we move forward. It just goes to show you that even in the 21st century, wars will be fought by what my neighbor has and I don't, but I need.